Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing one of the best luxury sports watches you can purchase at any price, the thinking man's alternative perhaps to more heralded references from Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet. It is the third generation Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronograph 5500V. You can see the stainless steel Overseas Chronograph with silver dial and purchase it on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this current generation overseas chronograph with additional accessories included, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this overseas chronograph. Now the watch on my wrist does boast an impressive array of accessories. Granted, it's boilerplate at the beginning of the video when I always say click on the link to see accessories, but in this case they really make a difference in the ownership experience. As you can see, the watch is on a full stainless steel bracelet. Well, you get a whole bunch of cool stuff. When you buy this watch, you get a full alligator leather large rectangular scale with deployant in steel to match. So you get a full deployant clasp and a leather strap specifically engineered for the quick release system of these lugs. Plus, for those times when you want to get wet and wild, but you want something with more adjustability or perhaps a more casual aesthetic than the bracelet, you also get this gorgeous hobnail embossed and yes, quick release engineered pin buckle rubber strap. So that's, and you'll even note that it has evacuations on the underside to aerate the wrist. They thought of everything with this watch. Like I said, the accessories show the level of attention to detail lavished on this, easily the richest generation of the overseas, now over 20 years young. So let's get a little bit closer to the watch and focus on the details of the ergonomics, because fit comes first. Assuming you're going to wear the watch on the bracelet, the watch has a lug-to-lug dimension, which is the distance across the wrist between, as I measure it, the outermost rigid points, and this is 56.7 millimeters across the wrist. Now if you were to measure from the strict lug to opposite lug, that is the actual distance of case extremities across the wrist, then you're measuring a more compact but still substantial 50.5. The important thing to remember is that it wears like it's 50.5 lug to lug even when it's on the bracelet. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, I feel no need to tighten it up. If I were to remove any of the sizable links, and you can see in profile that every individual link of the bracelet is removable for precise sizing, I would be able to get a very secure fit. Though the watch is 42 millimeters, 42.5 even, across the broad of the case from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, nevertheless, I believe the smallest wrist that could wear this watch comfortably and with decent proportion is as petite as 14.5 centimeters in circumference. I honestly believe that would work just fine even with the bracelet, and on the strap you would get a look and a fit that's even better. The bracelet is very comfortable and the watch is not thick, as its profile shot reveals 13.6 millimeters thick, but with a generously cupped case back that tends to settle down into the skin so it rides lower, and a generously sloped Maltese cross motif notched conical bezel that allows a dress cuff, not just a sport jacket, but a dress sleeve to slide up and over its flanks. The silver dial would be the option you'd take if you want the most genteel and reserved aesthetic. Other options, including blue, sunburst brown, and a little bird told me pretty soon black, are sportier, decisively sportier and more aggressive. This watch better straddles the line between aggressive sports reference and dress watch in a way that a similarly sized sports chronograph, like for instance a Royal Oak offshore, simply could not. Let's talk a little bit more about this bracelet because it's a superb piece. First and foremost, I like the fact that it features a quick release system such that even with my diminished nails, I can quickly and easily remove the bracelet. Also, look at the attention to detail here. You can see that the tops are satin finished, but then there's a sort of hollow of the Maltese cross inboard where the interior of the bracelet on both sides is polished in its hollow and its recess. And that's true of every individual link. You can see that polish, that interstitial polish, beautifully executed. There's a bevel that runs the entire length of the bracelet that shows the degree of hand finishing invested in this watch. It's not just polished on the top or polished on the sides, satin on the top, but there's actually that rounded transitional polished bevel that is absolutely gorgeous, worthy of the best from AP or Audemars Piguet. Now you'll also note once more that every individual link is removable for precise sizing, and that is true on both sides of the bracelet. The deployant is very secure with twin trigger release. This is not friction fit and it's not a cheap clamshell. It's also fully finished inside and out. Everything is of high polish. There are no machining or stamping marks, and when closed, it's going to resolutely resist desk diving scratches and scuffs because it just doesn't have much stack height. It doesn't tower outboard of the bracelet the way something like a dive watch clasp would. I'm going to put my watch back together for a moment here. It's that easy. Let's talk about the case itself. It sits like a cushion on the wrist with a conical but mostly flat and regularly shaped case back that creates absolutely no pressure points or hot spots on the wrist. You can see the underside of the bracelet has broad channels or hollows between links to avoid pinching skin or pulling hair. Finally, it's important to note that the case itself features a handsome differential finish with satin finished tops, polished flanks. There's a little bit of tumble home, or I should say reverse tumble home to the case flank. It's not a sheer wall. It actually has a little bit of a concave profile and bows in. You'll also note that there's a nice transitional bevel that expands off the bevel of the bracelet and then runs the case band, thinning out and expanding again on the opposite side. Look at the attention to detail within the bezel. The outer surfaces are all of high polish, and there is a vertical satin grain within each of the hollows or the recesses. Turn the watch over and you can see the same level of attention to detail lavished on the dial. Now outboard there is a Rayhaut, or a sloped 60-second chapter ring that makes it easier to read chronograph seconds at a glance. The crown and both chronograph pushers are of the screw-down variety and endow the watch with 150-meter water resistance, superior to anything from AP or Patek, save the AP Royal Oak Offshore Diver. But this is a complication, and that's not. Now, the dial also has a handsome sunburst silver treatment with countersunk sub-registers and a handsome frame about the date window. It's not simply a hole in the dial. It's nicely framed, fixed, and finished. All of the indices and hands are white gold, but blackened for contrast against the silver base, and they're robustly loomed. Stay tuned at the end of the video for a loom shot so you know exactly what you're getting. Triple register chronograph seconds outboard, as well as minutes and hours, a true tri-register chronograph. You can see the design of the knurling for the crowns actually recalls the Maltese cross motif itself, and the watch is beautifully detailed. More Maltese cross symbology outboard of the crown. Turn the watch over, and heck, why not? We may as well, right? My nails aren't what they were, guys. Forgive me. They make me get professional manicures to do these videos. But let's take a look at the case back now. The bracelet is off, and so are the gloves. We're pulling no punches. This is the Vacheron Constantin manufacturer caliber 5200. Let me get it in focus. Okay, now you can see the business end of this watch. 22 karat engraved winding mass with a half compass rose pattern. No expense spared. 22 carats, far superior to the 21/18 karat or even tungsten being used on many high horology rotors these days. It is unidirectional winding system for efficiency, compounded by ceramic rotor bearings at the center, which offer both efficiency, like the unidirectional winding, but also long-wearing durability because they operate unlubricated. Now, there's a tremendous amount of black polish on the cover for the balance, as well as the screw heads themselves, and as I move the watch flush to the camera, you can see all of those surfaces turning black. The highest standard of finish, matched by a gorgeous, if narrow, mirrored anglage at the edge of every bridge as well as the balance cock. This is hand finishing to the highest standards of traditional Geneva watchmaking. Of course, all of this post-2012 Geneva hallmark execution, which is why the watch is now signed on the case as well as the movement. It is a holistic test of the watch's finishing, durability, precision, and there are certain yardsticks for achieving the post-2012 Geneva hallmark that simply didn't exist for most of its history after its establishment in 1886. So this is a brave new world for Vacheron and Geneva alike. You can see black polished crenellated towers as well as a Maltese cross motif at center for the column wheel that's used to select the functions of the chronograph. You can see there's a even and perfectly aligned Côte de Genève across the bridges. aligned from bridge to bridge. All screw heads are black polished with chamfered slots. All screws feature polished pilot, which is the threaded stalk below the crown of the screw. If you were to back them out, look at them as a watchmaker, their undersides would be mirror finished. Now, the watch does feature a quick set date. It does not feature hacking, 150 meter water resistance, and anti-magnetism up to 25,000 amperes per meter. Now, the ISO standard for an anti-magnetic watch is approximately 4,800 amperes per meter, so this is multiples better than that, achieved by putting a paramagnetic ring around the movement that actually bends the field lines around the movement. That's why it can have anti-magnetism like the original Overseas without the inner soft iron cage of the original Overseas. Now, it does have a column wheel that you saw, as well as a vertical clutch for smooth engagement and, should you prefer, continuous running of the chronograph without hazard wear or tear to the mechanism. Finally, the automatic winding system energizes a 65-hour power reserve, so when fully topped off, this could be a watch that you can put down for a day or two as you cycle through a collection, the power reserve being the icing on the cake of a grand and beautifully executed watch, front and back. Beats away at 28,800 vibrations per hour for a modern beat rate. And for the first time in the history of the Overseas, this generation lets you see what you're paying for inside the machine. You can see into the soul of this one on our website. Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronograph Generation 3. Beautiful in blue. See it and own it on our website.